Reflections meaning thoughts is holy, for holy means separated from the matter. This means that he removes himself from the desire of reception by means submitting the body even though it disagrees, and taking upon oneself only thoughts of Kadashar. This is the meaning of bow before his holy mountain. No questions. I guess in a basic manner, it's pretty easy. Yes, okay. What are the thoughts of Kashar? Lots of sanctity, not much. The intention to bestow. That's it. Just like the opposite, the intention to receive. We don't have a reality that needs to confuse us. It's rather simple. The intention to receive is this world. Thoughts of impurity, and the intention to bestow is the spiritual world. Thoughts of purity, of sanctity. That's it. Time PT 32. When he just said that we have to try to kind of feel it and dive into the feeling. When we read I felt it really strongly. How important really is it that we all try to be in this feeling, that entering that state the cholists write about in these great wonderful excerpts. Very work the more the better, and together. Then later we forget it for a moment and once again connect and enter more inwards. Let's help each time from these exits and entrances, that each time we come and greater distance and coming nearer again, and this we're building a stronger and stronger connection. Tell A3 to nullify my reason with the year. Over the years it becomes a bit more understood. What can we add to annulment? On the annulment, we need to feel from the inside how much I agree with this state, that I should not feel myself, that I will not exist, that everything the cholists say, that the society could say, maybe the teacher, how much for me it is above everything I could think and determine. That's an PT 35. Thank you. He writes here, bow before his holy mountain. Well, what is holy? Sanctity means separate, opposite from me. What is in the desire to bestow in above reason? That's called sanctity. Basically, bow before holy mountain means I always have to push the friends towards love, bestow. Correct. Just as you told the bride, yes you are. Say you are separated from the whole world and you belong only to me. That's called sanctified. Separated, separate from reception, from our ego. It's written, and bow meaning surrendering. Surrender, submitting the body even though it disagrees. How to do that? Yes, in actions we can do this. In prayers we can do this. Until there comes from above some unique illumination and sanctifies us, and then we reach his holy mountain. Slowly we begin to climb it. This mountain means there's two qualities, reception and bestow. In each and every one of us there's force of reception and bestow. What are you asking about? The mountain, his holy mountain, is when the two qualities are together. Mountain is from the word doubts, thoughts, opposition. It's very hard to climb over, but nonetheless when we climb, we rise. Barely, but we do rise. That's called we reach his holy mountain. That by this we reveal what is sanctified, what is separate from the will to receive, which is the quality of bestow, separate from the intention to receive. Okay, we'll continue item number 7 from Soar. For all it is written, I am my beloved's, and his desire is for me. In the beginning I am my beloved's, and afterwards, and his desire is for me. I, my beloved, is to first sit up a place for him with an awakening from below, and then, and his desire is for me. Divinity is not present with the wicked. When a person comes to purify and bring himself closer to the Creator, divinity is over him. It is written about it. I am my beloved's first, and then, and his desire is for me. Since when one comes to purify, he is purified. He doesn't have a question. Was a mistake. Okay, so no questions. Everything's clear. All right. Oh, PT 35. Thank you, Ralph. What does it mean to purify? He who comes to purify. To come to purify meaning that I awaken the upper one, that I want to be in the quality of bestower like him. And I do all sorts of preparations for this, that I want to be connected to the friends and I want to bestow. And from this that I prepare myself for this. Then I'm turning to the Creator. And in this ultimately I receive some response from him, that I begin to feel how accordingly I'm starting to change, how much I am capable of coming closer in my internality to the friends. I can see in myself such greater force of bestow, desire to bestow towards the friends through their friends to the Creator, to open the heart more It's all not so simple, but I feel that it's that's in the same direction that needs to, and that's how we advance. Sometimes it can take a long time until a person really hears this, and then till he agrees with this, and then begins to realize it. It takes time, but that's the process. That's the path. Focus group. Thank you. Focus group describes 2 stages here. First, I am my beloved, and then his desires for me. Is it like creating the vessel, and then fulfillment? Can you explain these 2 stages? Well, my beloved, it's clear that the person needs to begin. The truth is that the Creator begins this, but we don't feel it. Yes, He awakens our heart, and then we begin to somehow yearn. But ultimately, when a person awakens the Creator by all sorts of means, by this, that he connects with the group, he doesn't know that it's the Creator who prepared this for him, that he learns he doesn't feel. Understand that the Creator is learning with him, and so on and so on. And by this, that a person reaches a state that he awakens the Creator. Then what happens is high to my beloved, which is called the Creator is concealed, that the Creator is always the first, and when a person acts in this, he then reveals that this is how he awakens the Creator. It seems to him that this is how he awakens the Creator, and not that the Creator is acting in him. And then the Creator is revealed and seemingly agrees to connect with the person, that this is called my sons have won me over. But all this is a game from above, just as we play with children, that actually all this is the Creator. I am the first and I am the last. Before there is the passion, with what does a person come to the Creator? In this, the Creator awakens the person. The Creator sends all sorts of messengers called the Malim angels, or persons. Yes, different opportunities. Or maybe some book falls into a person's hands. That's how it happens. He hears something from somebody. Why should it be like that? Why does the Creator need this initial action? He awakens me. There's many things in this. We later reveal that the main thing that the Creator cannot get involved in, our free will, our free choice, says here in the excerpt that does not dwell with the wicked, but we, feeling ourselves wicked, feeling that we are in the evil inclination, we have no hope to acknowledge the godliness. Along the way, you need to get familiar with the wicked and make an effort to banish them, and then in this extent, you're getting closer to the Creator. All the wicked are in you. If I can't find words like you said in the beginning, how else is it possible to express connection? By connection with the friends, you will find words along with them slowly, gradually, and you will attain the Creator. You'll reach a state that you will be able to talk to Him. Bulgaria is insurance. How do the sinners become corrected? Those are the same qualities which help us connect with the friends. So those same qualities also bother me to connect with the Creator. So thus I first have to reach this, that I annul these qualities as they are, and instead of them I develop qualities that I connect with the friends. And then I reach a state that I also in this can connect with the Creator. Very simple. We need to learn first on the relations between us in order to reach the correct relations with the Creator, because the Creator is concealed. I don't know what to do. I see that the whole world seemingly is confident that they have a connection with the Creator. And our method is this, that we need first to reach a state that we connect between us. Okay, Bulgaria. Does it mean it's my personal individual work? Yes, of course. Thank you, Raf. What does it mean his desire is for me? But then I reveal the Creator wants me. To the extent that I yearn for Him, then I can reveal not immediately in the extent that my yearning is formed, established correctly, then I feel that His yearning towards me. Can I discover this yearning only through the friends? You'll see how it is. PT7 is part of our work to be inspired by the friends' questions and see how much it advances the lesson. Where are you disappearing on the way? It is part of our work to be impressed by the friends' questions. See how it advances the lesson. Yes, of course. I am very much impressed from your questions, and each time it obligates me to go over all sorts of discernments. This I pass them but this that I go over them, it renews many things for me, and in a spiritual manner, not just in knowledge or something spiritually. And so this I think that everyone needs to yearn to hear what our friends say and what I answer, because in this specifically, we're building the network of connection between our mutual clee, where it comes from, where it results from, where is it built. From this that each one asks and everyone asks, okay, yes, and I answer, and everyone makes an effort to understand the answer and incorporate both of the question and the answer. Right, everything is built on questions and answers. Okay, Rob, friends, you said there's something special about this time of my beloved to me. So, what's special about this time? Awakening, the month of awakening. What does it mean? Awakening, meaning a suitable time for this that a person's heart shall awaken to the Creator. I'm asking if there's a connection between the spiritual and the period of time in this world. Yes, there also is. Really? Yes. It's not so simple that there's nothing. There's many things that we don't understand, don't feel, don't know. So there's some importance to the time we study in. Yes, there's times for the bad and times for the good. Latin too, it's written, and his desire is for me. How do we awaken the desire of the Creator? By this that we yearn to him. Hello everyone in the world. Anoi, from the Japanese tent. I'm very grateful for this opportunity to give this speech today. I've been studying in BLO for 2 years. Every week I meet with my 10 in our online lesson, and we strive to connect our hearts with one each other. When we connect for a long time, the connection becomes much deeper, and we see both the good sides and the bad sides of the friends, and I feel that we are actually able to lower ourselves to see only the good qualities of our friends. And we're very connected with the worldly, and we feel study thanks to the support of many friends. Especially we're so thankful for the translation that we're receiving all the time, and we hope that we can move together and study together, all of us together. And we wanted to pray again to the Creator that through our connection we will come to the correction, and then we will be all together as one. Thank you so much, everyone. Yes. Shamarti 191. The time of descent. In the place where you find his greatness, there you find his humbleness. This means that it is a matter that is above nature, that the Creator gave us this gift. They gave this gift to creation in order to allow them to be connected and adhered to him. Hence, when one becomes reconnected, he should always remember his time of descent, so as to know, understand, appreciate, and value the time of the so he will know that now he has salvation above the natural way. I read again, 191. In the place where you find his greatness, there you find his humbleness. This means that it is a matter that is above nature, that the Creator gave this gift to creation in order to allow them to be connected and adhered to him. And when one becomes reconnected, he should always remember his time of descent, so as to know, understand, appreciate, and value the time of Vic, so he will know that now he has salvation above the natural way. Active question. Active workshop. How can we give each other the strength to use every state precisely for added connection and descent? How can we give each other the strength to use every state precisely for added connection and ascent? Yes, indeed, we help each other specifically, like that. Our of you depends on mutual assistance, because a person by himself doesn't have the power to do this. The role of the 10 toward the friend is to give greatness and importance of the Creator, and in that it gives it the friend that then he gets different forces to rise above nature. And there in that place he finds that where he had a lack of forces, now he finds new strength because of a certain goal. It's all a matter of importance. If there is sufficient importance between us, and we take care of that, then this brings about an ascent. Our collective force is strong. I'm going to come to the morning lesson, and to show the friends how the morning lesson is important for connection between us, for the correction of our vessels, and for the reception of the light. Yes, and from the importance of the goal. We do everything, so need to always elevate the importance of the goal, so it's as important as possible in the society. Yes, as we heard it, if the person remembers the state of descent, then he receives an ascent not in order to enjoy it, but in order to give strength to the friends that now they are in a descent, and then everyone awakens. And so we give each other examples, and the chain works, and we ask for the powerful wood to be together in the lesson and to really go into it full force. Silent workshop. Let's pray that the Creator will strengthen the friends so that they will always be connected to the 10 and to Him. Again, silent workshop. Let's pray that the Creator will strengthen the friends so that they will always be connected to the 10 and to Him. Shalom. Bahar. My friends, in the first part of the lesson, we'll learn a lesson from Rav, from the date February 8, 2002. And the article is Jacob Went Out. It is article number 10 from 1985. We will read the article in tens for 23 minutes. Jacob went out. Jacob went out. According to Rash's interpretation, I should have written only Jacob went to Haran. Why does it mention his exit? It says that the exit of a righteous from a place leaves an impression. When the righteous is in town, he is its splendor. He is its brilliance. He is its majesty. When he exits it, its splendor exits, its brilliance exits, and its majesty exits. Thus far his words. We should understand the above in the work. What is a righteous, and what is the impression that a righteous makes upon his exit? We should interpret that the Creator is called righteous. As it is written, the Lord is the righteous, and I and my people are the wicked. This means that when a person is close to the Creator, meaning feels that the Creator is close to him, he feels how the Creator does him good. At that time, he feels good taste in Torah and in prayer, and in all his engagements, he feels that the Creator is close to him. Whatever he does it with joy and elation. Afterwards, he comes into a descent, feeling tastelessness in the study of Torah and good deeds. However, he is left with the impression that he had during the ascent, when he felt good taste in Torah and mitzvot, and was in a state of joy. That remaining impression made him long to return to the previous state. That is, after some time he awakens through the impression left in him so as to seek advice how to return to the state he had, which was called a state of ascent. While now he feels his loneliness, how remote he is from anything spiritual, springs up the question, why did he get this descent? Who's gaining by this? Or perhaps it came to him as a punishment, for now he must correct himself for his sin. However, he does not know what was the sin for which he has descended from the state of ascent he was in. Thus he does not know what is what to correct. It follows that on the one hand, he does not see any deficiency in himself that could have caused him a descent, so he is compelled to say that it came from the Creator. This begs the question, what did he gain from lowering him from his degree? By this we can interpret what our sages said. The exit of the righteous from the place leaves an impression. During the ascent, it is regarded as the Creator being present in the place, meaning in the body. At that time, he causes him the sensation of excitement from Torah and mitzvot. But he could not give that importance that the Creator is in him. As it is written, I am the Lord who dwells within them, in the midst of their impurity, to appreciate it, to know who is in him, and pay the due respect. Thus they could never help him receive a higher degree since he was satisfied with the work. Therefore, he was lowered from heaven so as to know once more how to appreciate it, since from above they raised him and brought him closer, but he did not value it. If you should ask why must one value his state of ascent, it is, as I heard from Baal Hassan, that there is no distinction of degrees in the light. Rather, the matter of gadlut and katnut, greatness and smallness, depends on the attainment of the vessels. According to the vessel's attainment of the light, so is the measure of the light. This is why he said that if a person receives something from above and has the sense to value it, to that extent the illumination grows for him, and he does not need a greater light at all. Rather, by himself, by appreciating the illumination, it grows and illuminates for him each time on a higher degree. It follows that the whole sin for which he fell from his degree was that he did not value his condition and was content. It therefore follows that he would have had to stay in this degree forever. Therefore, the descent he had received was for his own good, so as to give him the ability to ascend in the degrees of holiness. Therefore, quote, the exit of a righteous one from a place leaves an impression when the righteous is in town. He is its splendor. He is its brilliance. He is its majesty. End quote. This means that all the importance was in it, but he did not know how to appreciate its value. Hence quote, its splendor departs, its brilliance departs, and its majesty departs. End quote. It follows that the exit of a righteous one from a place leaves an impression. He should know that when the righteous was in town, he did not pay attention to appreciating its splendor, its brilliance, and its majesty. Instead, he turned, meaning that he did not have the importance of all the above-mentioned degrees of importance. This is called leaving an impression, meaning that it had to be imprinted in him that the exit of the righteous from the place was because of the turning, meaning that in fact all the degrees were there, but he did not notice it, because he should have known that there are no changes in the light, but everything depends on the vessels. It follows that we can say that this departure was not due to a sin, but so as to allow him to rise in the degrees of holiness. We should also interpret regarding the above-mentioned verse that the exit of a righteous one from the place leaves an impression, and this refers to a person. For when the righteous is in town, it means that a person can justify providence. Then when he overcomes the state he is in and says there is no doubt that the Creator who is good and does good is behaving benevolently with me. However, he wants me to feel as I do. It follows that he is justifying providence. At that time he immediately sees the importance of the work of bestow and above reason. This is called, quote, when the righteous is in town, he is its splendor, he is its brilliance, and he is its majesty. End quote. For then he sees all the virtues. When he departs from their, end quote, means that he has departed from justifying providence and wants to see everything within reason. At that time, he feels no taste in the work in order to bestow, and then, quote, its splendor departs, its brilliance departs, and its majesty departs. End quote. And he falls once more into self-love. In other words, at that time he knows nothing but work that is built on a basis of within reason. This is regarded as the exit of the righteous from the place leaves an impression. It means that only then through the exit of the righteous, when he thinks now that I feel good taste in the work, I no longer need to work above reason. And this causes him the exit of the righteous from the place. This creates in him an impression. So he will know how to keep himself from exiting the work of above reason from here on. And as I heard from Balsam, when a person says that now he has supports and no longer stands between heaven and earth, he must fall from his degree, because then he flaws the discernment of above reason. Therefore follows that precisely the departure of the degree he had leaves an impression on him. So he will know how to be careful next time and will not blemish the faith above reason, but always justify providence. And behold, a ladder was set on the earth with its top reaching to heaven, and behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. The interpreters asked it should have said descending and then ascending. To understand this in the work, we need to explain that the ladder implies a person. A person stands below on the earth, but the man's head reaches the heaven. That is, when a person begins to advance upward, he reaches the heaven, and he should not complain that the latter is set on the earth. However, first we need to understand what on the earth means. We see that the earth is the lowest thing, and yet we also see that all the stately buildings and wholesome fruits come specifically from the earth. It is known that earth implies the will to receive, which is the foundation, since all of creation and all the bad that exists in the world extend from this desire. As it is known that all the wars, murders, and so forth are rooted in the will to receive. This is called the ladder set on the earth. For when a person first comes to the world, he is placed on the earth. The eretz, from the word I will want, meaning I want to receive. This is regarded as loneliness, that there is nothing lower than that. However, its top reaching to heaven, that is precisely through the ladder being set on the earth. I will want for Earth I will want has two meanings. One from the word, meaning I want. Two from the word land, which is regarded as loneliness. It is known that the essence of creation is only the desire to receive, that in the beginning of creation only the will to receive emerged. Afterward there were corrections called equivalence of form, which means that the lower one called earth achieves equivalence with heaven, which is called the giver. We can interpret this as man, although he is in worldliness, can still correct by his head called the end of the ladder, reaching to heaven, namely being in equivalence of form with the heaven, which is regarded as receiving in order to bestow, as in the beginning of creation. The receiver emerged first and then was corrected in order to bestow. So is the latter, which is akin to a person standing on the earth. The beginning is on the earth and then he reaches heaven. This means that we should not be impressed when we see that man is full of worldliness and has no sparks of bestowal, and he cannot believe that it is realistic that his body will ever agree to work only in order to bestow. Instead, he should believe that it is the way and the order of the work that the Creator wants it specifically in this way, that a ladder will be placed on the earth with its top reaching to heaven. By this we will understand what is written. Quote, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. End quote. The interpreters ask, angels are in the sky, so it should have said descending and then ascending. We should interpret that this refers to man, who is the emissary of the Creator. Since an angel is called a messenger, these men who are walking on the path of the Creator are called God's angels. First they ascend by the ladder being set on the earth and reach the top of the ladder regarded as, quote, its head reaching to the heaven, end quote, and afterwards they descend, meaning that all the ascents and descents are because there are two ends to the latter, one set on the earth, meaning the place, and two, but it stop reaching to heaven. This means that to the extent that he appreciates that it stop reaches to heaven, he can feel the loneliness of being set on the earth and regret being in worldliness. But if he has no real clue about it, stop reaching to heaven, he has nothing to impress him about being in a state of descent. It follows that to the extent that he ascends and it stop reaching to heaven, he can appreciate the measure of loneliness of the descent. This is why it is first written, ascending and then descending, since one can feel that he is in a state of descent only to the extent that he feels the importance of reaching to heaven. And this is the meaning of ascending and then descending. Since the ladder that one should climb in order to carry out his vocation, for he was sent to this world by the Creator, begins from the degree of, quote, a ladder set on the earth with its top reaching the heaven, end quote, meaning from the beginning of loneliness, which is the will to receive, which is his nature, and its head means that at the end of the latter he should reach the heaven, which is only to bestow. This is called heaven as earth is called receiving and heaven is called giving. We should also interpret ascending and descending as a person having to know that when he feels that he's in a descent, such as when he engages in commerce or works at a factory or simply walks on the street, and he suddenly wakes up from his sleep and finds himself in a state of descent, at that time you should know that, knowing that he is in a state of descent, has come to him from the ascent. This is called ascending first and then descending, for if there were no ascent in degree, owing to the awakening from above, he would not come to feel this. However, he is being called upon from above. It follows according to the above that our entire work is as a ladder set on the earth with its top reaching the heaven. That is man's ladder has two discernments, and with those two discernments he ascends on the ladder of the life of the living of life, rather one from his perspective. The latter set on the earth, which is the will to receive, is set on the earth, which is loneliness. Earth means receiving, female who receives from the heaven, where heaven is called male giver, and it said reaching to heaven means that bestow called heaven is to him the head, meaning important, and to the extent that he regards bestow as the head, regards the earth, which is the will to receive, as earth, dirt meaning loneliness. Two he regards the meaning als I will want as the head, and heaven is regarded as loneliness. Also, angels of God means that one who makes the calculation that he has come to this world on a mission from the Creator to correct corrections, is called angels of God ascending and descending on it. That is, they see the ladder of the living set on the earth, meaning that the will to receive is regarded as loneliness, quote, it stop reaching to heaven, end quote, means that to him bestow means heaven, that is, they are awaiting bestow because the essence of their work is to bestow contentment upon the Creator, and this is what they regard as head. When they receive a desire with which they can bestow, they consider it elation, upliftment, and this is what they wait for. Conversely, when they are placed under the rule of the earth, they feel loneliness and are looking only to bestow upon the Creator. Yea, the article is very strong. It speaks a lot about ascents and descents, and how important it is for us in this entire state that we go through in the path, and really, as it's written in the article, that we don't need to get excited by the forces of the will to receive only through our vessel that we build in the 10. We can rise above this degree as we learn about the ladder above, yes, and actually we see how everything works according to the records. And as the records emerge, when one emerges, all the records are renewed, and from that place he advances the whole issue of its glory and virtue and all that magnificence. That's when he exits and returns records, and the lights emerge and then enter, and so on. There are many things here which are very deep. It's speaking about this whole structure of the world to receive and all the forms of our progress, where when I'm above then I have this impression, and when I fall I want to return above, and when I'm below I also have this impression from that, and I'm careful. It says you need to be careful and you need to be afraid of falling. And now, friends, let's continue to our lesson on the article from the 8th of February 2002. We read an article from Volume 1 of Steps of the Letter, page 245. Jacob went out. Little Jacob, meaning a person who has only a small desire for spirituality, in order to reach the goal, needs to leave his place toward the goal, and then, in his dream, meaning in his surrounding lights, in what shows him the future, he sees that he needs to go along the path, along the ladder of the degrees, so that he'll have to go through. And the ladder is always set toward the earth. What does set toward the earth mean? That every time he wants to change his state from one degree to another, he needs to descend to the earth, to the lowest degree, and check whether he is standing upon corporality, whether his desires from their coarsest desire all the way to the highest desire that he now wants to reach and correct are all found on that same ladder of degrees. So each time we have the angels ascending and descending, a person who wants to be an angel of the Creator, meaning that all his movements, all his thoughts, all his steps will be in accordance with what is in the thought of creation, so much so that there will be no difference at all between him and the plan of the thought of creation, to such an extent that even if there were no plan, he wants to be corrected, such that he himself would create and program that plan, meaning that his steps, thoughts, and actions would even be faster than his receiving commands from above, and that person is called an angel of the Creator. Nevertheless, his work is in ascents and descents. The greater their ascents, the descents corresponding to them are also deeper into the greater corporality that a person discovers he is in. This is how he progresses until Jacob becomes Israel, which is the gather, the greatness of the state of Jacob, and then he already reaches the top of the ladder, and through that the end of correction. Other questions about this? Yes, he writes here about a person who's studying and seemingly did not appreciate the significance of the degree he was in. My question is, each time a person rises to some degree, can he truly appreciate the importance of that degree? In other words, this is what you're asking. Why does a person need to descend? What does it mean that since he does not appreciate the importance of the degree, he needs to descend? If a person is in some state and wants to rise to a higher degree, where will he want to rise from? In this state where he is now, he needs to reveal a certain lack, some flaw, that this state is not sufficiently perfect. Otherwise, what does it mean to rise higher? What am I lacking here? If I'm in perfection and spirituality is perfection, then in every state I'm in spirituality, I need to feel really good ends of eternity, no lack whatsoever. Then the state is dead and the person cannot grow from it. So the smallest degree in spirituality would finish him off. It would bury him, and that would be it. So how would he rise when he is in a certain spiritual state and attains the perfection and eternity? Because every degree, every spiritual state is some small measure of ends of the end of correction. Whether 100th or 1/10th, it doesn't matter. It's a measure of the final degree because every degree has 10 ft. It has all the discernments from Ket to Malat. It only depends on how he discerns them, how he feels them, either somewhat through a fog or more, and more clearly until with all the details he enters the end of correction. So if he is even on the smallest degree in perfection and eternity, then how will he move from that place and ever reach the true measure of eternity that the Creator has designated for him? All right. For that from above, they simply shine greater lights from an even greater degree, and the person starts feeling within those lights. He doesn't start feeling in those lights that he's lacking something because, essentially, it is not his lack. Instead, he starts to feel that there is much more in spirituality, that spirituality is much more exalted. It's much more important than he had previously thought, and from that he begins to move. Meaning this can be compared to two forces that act upon us. One force acts by revealing the left line to us. Our lacks, our deficiencies, how flawed we are, and this force pushes us from behind through suffering. And the second force pulls us forward through pleasures by revealing to us how much more important spirituality is, how much more special and good the right line is that what had previously been revealed to us, and this pulls us forward, meaning these two forces act upon a person. Certainly, it's better to progress through the force that pulls us toward pleasures to eternity, rather than the force that pushes us from behind, the deficiencies, the suffering. It depends on the person, on the extent to which he can change the relationship between these two forces acting on him. It might be that he succeeds to do so in such a way that he hardly feels any deficiencies of his own at all, but instead he always proceeds with deficiencies on the right line where he always has an urge to bestow to the Creator, an urge to discover more opportunities to give. That's called the sufferings of love. He replaces the suffering that pushes him from behind, which compel him to move like a stick with a thorn on it. So instead of that, he constantly works on how to discover the greatness of the Creator, the greatness of spirituality, so that he will have sufferings of love. How much I still do not love, how much I am still incapable of bestowing. And then he exchanges one for the other, and certainly advances in the desired way, in the eyes of every upper degree, in the eyes of the Creator. Certainly if a person advances by being drawn forward, so that's preferable to development, compelling him and pricking him from behind. But you see how it is in this world. We're constantly lagging behind. We develop our means, we develop our intellect, we develop in science, in desires and everything, but we don't develop accordingly in how to use these tools. So we constantly lag behind, and this lag accumulates, and you see that from one generation to the next. People find themselves more and more frustrated in proportion to how they seemingly create more opportunities for themselves, yet are less and less capable of enjoying them. This is because we simply do not know people right. Ordinary people, let's say, they don't know how to use the law of development correctly. Yes, it's written that suddenly he awakens from his sleep and he sees that he's in a state of descent. He doesn't feel why. Is it sudden? Why isn't well? As soon as it's taken from you, as soon as you descend a little bit from the feeling of phoniness, then you feel it. So why is it sudden? We can be in a state either by we determine it ourselves, we submit ourselves to that state and come to it, or that state comes to us from outside of us, from who knows where. Right, that it's not under my control. If the state comes not under my control, then it too was prepared beforehand. If you could see the future, you would see that it might happen. But when that state comes and you are already in it, you still do not recognize that you are in it. We need to go through several actions before you recognize it. We also learn this from the construction of the vessels that there are, and only after a vessel is filled and emptied can a person truly feel what state he is in. Therefore, when a person discovers his state, he actually discovers that he is already in it. On spiritual degrees, this is expressed in a clear and very prominent way. A person feels himself good and good and good and good because he wants spirituality and to bestow, and he searches and everything. Afterward, what happens is that he starts to forget that he wants to bestow and that this is spirituality, and instead he begins simply to enjoy his state, that he feels good. Then he forgets about the goal and feels only the good. From the moment he feels only the good, they begin working on him to lower him from the degree, but he still feels the good. And then, after some time, he suddenly discovers that he is no longer in spirituality at all and is no longer in the good. And he immediately discovers where he is, and only then does he awaken. Therefore, in order not to reach such states, so the method is simple. If you worked on some spiritual progress and you feel that you are in it, you must not cling only to the feeling. You always need to come up with additional deficiencies for yourself so as not to stop, but to constantly advance. There can be no stopping in spirituality, either forward or backward. This is a very big problem for a person, because it's very hard to constantly hold himself on the goal and constantly. Therefore, if a person is in a group where other people around him are working and he becomes incorporated in them, then even if he forgets or something, they are working, so it's as though he is traveling together with them. But if he's not in a group, if he's alone, everything really depends on him. The moment he forgets about the goal and clings only to the feeling, the descent immediately begins. This almost doesn't happen with us, because after all, even now you're sitting with another 100 people around you, so you're already incorporated in this whether you want to be or not. So you already have some kind of damper, I don't know how to put it, break. That doesn't immediately act as it's not a stop, but it's really a break that they don't immediately activate. You have a certain cushion. You understand that you don't immediately fall. This is work that you need to do. In any case, according to the law, spirituality is incessant movement. There cannot be any stopping. There cannot be the same state existing one beside the other. It would be like this, a straight horizontal line. It cannot be otherwise. There is either a descent or an ascent, or if there's no ascent, then in order to awaken the ascended, descent immediately comes. Therefore he writes that angels of God ascend and descend. So if that's the case, then a person, even if he wants to be an angel and obey the spiritual laws 100%, nevertheless he has to descend. So he says, no, you can descend without descending. How if each time you find new deficiencies in your state through which you can rise higher, then the new deficiency that you find already serves you in a place of descent, and then you don't need to descend. In other words, this is considered a descent. In any case, angels ascend and descend. But this descent, which you immediately discover within yourself, and which you yourself want to find, you attach to the ascent. This is what he says about the righteous one, that an old man walks with his head bent down in order to search for deficiencies. There are many things about this. Yes, no, yes. When a person is beyond the barrier and has a descent, does he descend to a state where he doesn't feel the Creator, or does he only descend to a state where he can't bestow? A person who descends even though he is beyond the barrier, how does he descend? He knows that he descends, but nevertheless he cannot do anything. What does it mean that he is beyond the barrier? There are two kinds of nature. He has the force of the Creator, and he has the force of the created being. Then he is no longer only within his animate nature, his beastly nature, but he has this divine part from which he can on one side see the other side. By the way, this already begins to develop within the person before the barrier, and a person begins to feel himself as consisting of two parts. For this one does not need to cross the barrier because when the point in the heart grows such that it begins to show its action, this remains in a person. But what does happen is that before the barrier a person passes from double concealment to single concealment, meaning even in his faults he knows that they apparently come from the Creator, and beyond the barrier as well there are descents and there is departure of the mo until he acquires the next degree and begins to ascend to it, adhere to it, and rise with impregnation, suckling and more. So certainly he is states like Rabbi Shimon becoming Shimon from the market, when Rabbi Shimon felt that he was like Shimon from the market. But nevertheless he felt that he was Rabbi Shimon who feels himself as Shimon from the market. It's not that this knowledge of who he is completely disappears, because this comes in order to give you a sharper discernment between the two extremes where you can be either adhered to the Creator or adhered to a market stall. You understand what's the full meaning of what a stall in the market is. You understand that's the simplest occupation a person can have without offending the shopkeepers there. Yes, student, we know that in spirituality there are no descents. Can we understand from this that the moment a person ascends to some degree, the state of descent from it is that he begins to feel a lack toward further degrees, that he feels there is something more above him. There is no descent, no actual descent. Rather, each descent is the acquisition of a new force of the left which is still not corrected. And through that, you see yourself in a negative light relative to the upper one, and that pushes you forward. It's impossible to call it a descent. It's an ascent. An ascent in the left line is called a descent, and that's what it is essentially. Or we picture it as though we descend lower than our previous position. But it's all for the sake of ascending, because the two lines of holiness and of the shell, it's they're one opposite the other. As you rise in holiness, you have to have the same revelation of the force of evil. Otherwise, what do you use in order to correct the vessel? All right, yes, he says that whenever a person feels as though he's in a descent, if at that very moment he begins to think about other deficiencies, then essentially he will present as though a greater descent of the left line. Yes, I need to rise from one degree to the next according to the plan of creation. There's no avoiding it. That's how it is. Now, in order to ascend, how's that possible? I have a lack, this lack I correct with the intention to bestow in order to bestow, and then it becomes a bigger corrected vessel. Into it I receive the revelation of the Creator, and that is called an ascent. There are no ascents, descents, none of that. It's just my vessel always growing, and then the reality I feel in it, well, I feel reality in it. More and more now. From where will I keep taking a larger vessel every time? So I have a vessel here, I have an infinite vessel for all these, each one of us. But this vessel I need to discover, I need to myself feel the lack in it. Let's say now I have a corrected vessel of 10 GUS through which I feel the spiritual reality, and I now need to reach the next degree where I'll have 20 GS of corrected vessel in which I to reveal twice over the spiritual reality. So how do I discover these additional 10 grams in my will, in my desires? So I can discover it by being drawn towards spirituality, and then I discover these 10 grams immediately as a lack, an attraction to spirituality. It's a lack that's in the right direction, or I can discover it by having it revealed to me from above. But then it is revealed to me as a bad thing, that I want corporality. I want to enjoy this. I'm immersed in that, and I can't emerge from all this, and this whole process that can take place here and over a very extended duration until I discover that it to my detriment, and this will receive, I should correct it, and instead of yearning for this, maybe I should yearn for spirituality. You understand suddenly the difference between walking in its time compared to hastening it, meaning until I might get the revelation of the lack from above, and I enjoy it, and then slowly I discover that enjoying it is it's awful. It's the opposite of the purpose. It only brings me corporeal suffering, spiritual suffering, until I despair of it completely, until instead of it I want something different until I understand what that other thing is that. It's spirituality, the creator, all that. Until I switch this direction with that direction there in terms of how I use the desire. Switch it to the other direction. It can take years. And so what does this method? This method, it teaches you how to discover a lack not in the way of, in its time, in the natural way. It happens and takes a long time, but rather through hastening it you discover the lack, you preempt thither. Enlargement of the vessel, the growing of the vessel before it's revealed to you from above. You do it first. And how can you do that? It's only by drawing to yourself more of the recognition of the greatness of the Creator, how great the Creator is, more and more and more than I thought. And then a new desire comes to you for Him, more and more and more. And if you discover it that way, then you don't need the sense or suffering. And then you save a lot of time and a lot of suffering and all sorts of bad discernments that you need to discover where you need to discover that what you thought was good brings you only bad results. You wanted to enjoy this, but you only received suffering. So how can we constantly develop a source for attraction to spirituality so that it will always pull us forward as a pulling force instead of our pushing force that motivates us? How can I do that? So he writes that this can be done only through the society, because all of the qualities in me and the qualities outside of me, all the phenomena outside of me, they work on me in a deterministic fashion. I was born with a certain nature. I have nothing to do with it. I am in a society. I can't do anything with that. So by what can I change? I'm being changed from above. So but how can I determine that those changes? So he says only by determining your society. If now you know that you need to find a society that will reveal to you the importance of the Creator, the importance of spirituality, then look for a society that will awaken in you those sensations. That is your choice, all of it. By that you save yourself from the path of suffering, bringing yourself to the path of the Tura, the path of flight, which pulls you forward. If you will succeed, yes, no, maybe, you'll have a little bit of suffering in, a little bit of Tura, both paths together. Well, what can you do? But, nonetheless, you, and what is the profit? The more you're not suffering, the more you advance, and the more you are in suffering, then you stay there and you wait until you grasp intellectually that being in this suffering is not progress. It's not good. And so you save time, you spare yourself the blows, punishments, and that's the difference. In any case, you'll get there. It's all an issue of how many more years you'll suffer for each discernment. So it's both suffering and years, right? Instead of finding some force that will pull you to spirituality without descending into this corporality, into this suffering. Yes, that is all. Yes, can a person be in a state of joy from recognizing the greatness of the Creator and still be sorrowful about his own state, about his lacks? During the preparation period, anything could happen. It may be that a person is sorrowful about the greatness of the Creator, that he doesn't have it, that he does have it, and he's happy, and with it he's still regretting not having something in corporality. In the time of concealment, the Creator is revealed partially, and the will to receive is also partially revealed, and not directly, but the Creator is revealed through the surrounding lights. So it may be that next to his revelation in the surrounding lights, all sorts of bad things are also revealed. It's called one concealment, when a person feels the suffering, but also feels that it's coming from the Creator. Yes, why do we advance more during the nighttime hours? When we study during the nighttime hours, why do we study during the nighttime? There are a few conditions set, as the Kabbalists set them as absolute conditions. The surrounding lights begin to awaken, and corrections which precede the day, according to the wisdom of Kabbalah. We learn this in what part is this? Yes, 12:11. Yeah, and then above Imma begin their correction as the morning approaches, and then in the morning they begin correcting the vessels, and the lights come to fill them, and so on. This is according to root and branch. So if a person wants to keep these laws in the root, he also tries to keep them in the branch, and also we have the well with respect to the surrounding lights. There's a certain relation from this. It applies to the person too. If he tries to study Kabbalah in those hours, then the surrounding lights come to him in those hours more and more strongly. Opposite each discernment of this world, you have discernments in spirituality. And so, in the surrounding lights, these things act one opposite the other. They correspond. So, it's worthwhile to get up at midnight, relatively speaking, and to begin to engage in corrections, the correction of the vessels. We have a correction called the correction of midnight, and we have special things we study, special prayers for us and also for the common people. That is all. That's one thing. And you had question you asked about this. Yes, so there are a few more conditions a person has to meet to advance to spirituality, although he doesn't know why. Yes, and one of them, that's the time. And studying in the evening, that's not mandatory. And into the night, it was never a custom for Kabbalists. It was always the custom to go to sleep as it becomes dark. Right, let's say it's at 700 p.m. in the evening. It's already dark. You go to sleep. That's it. That's how it was. That is natural. And then to get up at midnight and to begin the corrections. The time to sleep is from the time the stars come out, and then until night begins and through to midnight. That's the time to sleep. Yes. What about the other things that a person needs to do? The other things a person must make by a friend. These things relate more to externality. Oh, all sorts. Balism, for example, had a condition where if a person doesn't pay for the lesson, he can't come to the lesson. You come here. Someone's standing over there, a collector. Give him 10 shekels. If not, you can't come in. That's how he would do it in a way which really, and people then didn't have where to make that kind of money. It's not about wanting or not wanting. There's nowhere to take it from. Okay, go take a loan. Training for the screen for the acts. That we learn to be. Exertion, you also have to match them in this world, otherwise you can't. Bias about buying right, because money comes from kissing yearning. Consume and screen, that's how it is. I remember coming to after 2 months. Well, I started asking after about a month. I was asked this over the internet today. I was asking how can I pay for the tea, the coffee, the things you get to drink and eat. And so the collector came to me and he says, you think you need to pay for this? You need to pay also for the electricity, the water, all these things. And I started thinking, well, I was sorry for asking about the coffee. What's going on? And so he says, no, this is how it is, right? And in addition, he says here you have to bring the love of the tithe. For me, this was odd. I was walking around people who were converting back to Judaism, and I had all these types. But myself was the tithe was a few good paychecks, just the tithe. And you can't pay what you get. You need to pay also from what you steal. Right, you need to also pay the tithe. From that it's not simple, so I didn't understand the principle of it. But after 2 years or so, a year and a half, after coming and studying and becoming assistant, I started managing his bank account, and then I saw what the tithe was like that. So the Kabbalists demanded of the students and more such things. In short, they would pressure them. There was pressure. They tell there about other things about more conditions, he said to the students. But group society, studying at night, it's simple, and without that, you don't meet the conditions for advancing at. No, right, well, yes. I have a question about, can we say for Kabbalists that the use of a screen is something that's constantly available, or does it depend on the state they are in? Meaning the use of the screen, which it depends on. The screen is the intention towards the Creator. My thoughts, my desires, my passions, everything is aimed towards Him. That is called the screen. That's it. Like a mother constantly thinks about her baby, all the time towards him, locked on him, right? That is the screen. If you start imagining a screen in some other way, I don't know if it's, but that is called a screen. The screen is the intention to bestow, but intention intellectually in order to bestow. That's no, it's an emotional thing. Emotional intention. It can't be where now I need to give him this and that, let's measure it out for him, and that's not a screen. You said that a screen is turning toward sensitivity and turning toward the creator sensitivity and turning toward the creator. The question is whether it is constantly available, as if in spirituality, entering spirituality. That's where you gain a screen over the will to receive that's present in you at that time. What does it mean? You developed in this world up to the biggest will to receive that can exist in this world, let's say, and over that you acquire a screen, meaning it cannot be that instead of spirituality, you look at corporality anymore. That's it. This is called making a restriction over the pleasures of this world. That's how I call it, because for certain you will have nothing to do with that anymore. Now with respect to spirituality, there two options begin to become apparent. You're done with this world, and suddenly there's something in front of you something that greatly confuses you. Very strong special pleasures, eternality, perfection. I don't know what to do with that. If you start falling into these pleasures in order to receive, this is called the shell. But if you gain the power to relate to that with the intention to bestow, that is called holiness. But both are above this world, both the shell and holiness. This world, it's not that you don't belong to it anymore. You can discern various pleasures here and so on, but it's not that you prefer. It's not that you will ever prefer corporality to spirituality. That can no longer happen. You're above that choice already, for certain. Yes. Now friends, we will summarize what we were impressed by from the lesson and what we want to implement in the 10 workshop. 6 minutes. Yes, many discernments that I listed. Need to choose some. Okay, so for example, let's say if a person is in some situation and he wants to rise to a higher degree, from where will he get the desire to rise? In that state where he is in, he needs to discover some lack, some flaw, making this state not sufficiently perfect, whole, and from that the ascent begins. So only after the vessel becomes emptied can the person find where he is, and then with that emptiness instead of despair he needs to adhere to the friend to raise importance of the goal, and from here there will be ascent instead of descent. Ascent on the left line. The person has to receive the records he receives, and each time he will receive what's waiting in line, right? But so, how does he advance? What option does he have? Only through the society, and what values? In the society, corporality, beastliness, or spirituality. The more he empowers the spirituality of the society, the more he advances. And so with each one in the society, so the more he takes care of that, the more he advances. That is called whether I advance in due time or in I will hasten it. One is in due time, and the other one is that I will hasten, that I will use the force of the society to become impressed by spirituality, to help each other in our to come closer to spirituality, and all the direction and thought of ours will be only forward, and that is called advancing by I will hasten it. It's very powerful lesson. Received so much from this lesson. I've explained so many things. One of the things he explained was that we need to always increase the importance of spirituality, and then a new desire rises within the person, and then he saves a lot of time, and he doesn't need a lot of suffering. There were also many explanations about the hours of the night and how it impacts the morning lesson, and here we sit with the 10 at night. We invite the surround the reforming light to change us, and we have hours where we need to sleep, hours where we need to do the spiritual work, and we've truly been awarded with receiving all this from the Kabbalists. Guess what can we add? Every article of Rabash is surgery that you can enter into the surgeon and find the spiritual path, and there's this nice explanation that he gave that a person stands between before the keeper, and he defined it as being beyond the barrier, that his desire to enjoy spirituality is already a keeper, but it's beyond the barrier, and kasher is that he wants to please the Creator, and that he has desires to bestow, and by that he can connect to him. And then he has a tishin, and the two of them already stand against the kasher, and then he has a calculation that is more independent, and that's already beyond the barrier. And then we also have the surrounding lights which add to us more and more urgency for spirituality, and there you, of the path of suffering, and then, whether they're the beneficial suffering, or whether they push you from below, from blows, or from above, they attract you, and we need to return to that again. Yes, ultimately, if we try to summarize such a lesson, in order to have lacks, how did he put it? If I look for ascents by myself during the time of ascent, I avoid the descent. But how to come to a state where I look for lacks in myself? It's all about the importance of the goal. If there is importance connection between us power before the fall, then we can use it quickly and not waste a lot of time. Yeah, if I'm alone, I cannot detect if I'm in an ascent or descent. Only if I'm in a society, I can see where I am, and I have friends who can always help me. Brother said, we're not to adhere to a feeling. Always add deficiencies, otherwise we will be stopped. What are those deficiencies? They're in place of the descent. Where do I grow them? I grow the cleave before it's revealed to me from above. How recognition of greatness and importance of godliness, and we're in the society. Remember the example of being in a tense convention, how much we prepared ourselves the whole time, and each friend felt spirituality because of the preparation and everything we did in this. What else can you say? If you're in a society, everything is innocent. We'll move to the next spot with a lesson. We are learning from the study of the tense part 6 in the inner light of item. Before we begin with inner light, we'll go back to reading the words of the R in item 20. The thing is that in this manner it has been explained that the lights of the ozone expanded to Zaken and the lights of pass through there as well. Hence, when the light of the anime of Ak is extended through there, it must mix with them and take their light. Indeed, they are 10 dots. The first 3 among them take light from what is extended from the looking of the in the from their place to the place where they connect to the Shibur, Zaken. They receive them only in Zaken, because that is where they begin, and not from what is in Zaken and above. However, the 7 lower Nekadot take only what is extended from the looking in the lights of the and from Zaken downward. It is known that the reach is the and the to the and not from Zaken upward. We'll move to the lesson with the third phase of Nekodam is the true goof of Nekodam. What is the true goof? Meaning that they're below the P of, like the previous goofs of the of, even due to the first restriction, are also called goof, and they are called the 7 lower spur of Nekodam, similar to the corrections of Dikna that are below Zaken, and extend the light of till the, which is called the upper muzzle, and until the taboo extends lights all. Because this the matter of the area of the upper one of the stick nar extends to the cas, which is called the 8th correction, the upper muzzle, and the secret of the lower area of Dikna is called the 13 correction, which extends to taboo, and because they are the 7 phases, that are the lower ones of which are including 6, and Malat, which is the 7th, and the upper area of Tikna is 6 Kaladin, which extends from the author, as noted in the previous parts, and therefore they end at the because. From the till the Zaken is the place of, and the lower area of the is the Malat, whose Kli is from Toab, and therefore it ends at the taboo. Thus far we talked with Dikner. Now we're talking about the world of Nekodam, which received the same phase against it, opposing it, and by this they are the 7 lower spur of Nekodam, which was including 6 such receiving the upper area of Dikna, and Maat receives from the lower area of Dikner, and this is where he says the first 3 in them take the light from what extends from his and the from their place to the place where they connect, and the where the Jew of Nekodam are the which emerges outwards from the Urash, which are called, meaning they become vessels of reception upon the light which descends from above, downwards, from of the first, similar to Zaken, which receives, Fran, of the first of, which are, in their place, meaning the 3 upper corrections of Dikner, which depend on the essence of the rush, and above the P, which are the 2 Metikner, from right and left, below the own, and the hair of the upper lip above the pair from right and left, are the 2nd correction, and which is free of hairs in the middle of the upper lip. So he says that in these 3 called, that are in their place, meaning that they're above the P, where's the mallet in them, is more as far as from below upwards in the manner of the upper lay and the galger in anime, where the mass in the screen in the anime which is the upper lip belongs to who? To the first, called, which is a true, which receives the from the phase opposing it the first, rush of Dickner. But the second, which is connected to the lower lip, is considered goof. But the which emerged outside of the row are due to the second restriction. It is known that every quantity of light that is in the of the descends and is bestowed to the goof. It turns out that all the lights of the three corrections of the upper Dickner, which are in their place descend and are influenced are bestowed and connect in the Zaken, and here he says that in the Zaken all the extension of the light are in their place connect. Whereas in Yeshodim, and that is until the Shibit, and from it, the Geo of Nekodim is taken. Remember all these things of the he divides for us between the upper lip and the lower lip, and he says from the upper lip it belongs to the row of Dickner, whereas the lower lip belongs to the of Dickner and is considered goof, and the god of Nikod we learned. Do not receive them, but in the Zaken, because from there they begin, and it has been clarified in length that the G of are not a true inf, but rather the second, which are the which emerge outside of the first rush and take from the bullet. Here he says that from there they begin, the god of Nikuim, and not from what the sh of Zaken and upwards he divides here, the upper lip being called the lower lip the shiblet. He calls it by the name which emerges outwards, and in we see that there's still, this comes to imply to us what we say, that the is only due to the second restriction, but in the first restriction it's still a rush, whereas in the 7 lower ones of Nikodim which take below the shib, even due to the first restriction, are also considered goof. And here he says because from there they begin what was in the Zaken and above. Why? Because above the Shuraken is considered the first, and from there they receive the first of Nikodim which is, but not the G of Nikodim, which don't have a grip there because they are in their measure, are considered goof. That's clarified, and it's simple. There's nothing new here. The lower 7 Nikod do not take, but from what extends from the in the lights of, from Zaken and below, because it's been clarified that the 7 Nikot of the world of Nikodim are considered the true goof of the Nikodim, meaning the third phase. Hence, they receive from the opposing phase, Frun. Also the third is discernment here, and hence they receive from below Zaken, which are the 2 areas of the Zikna, until the where they extend the, and from that receive of until the taboo, from which it extends from 2, and from there she receives, which are in general the lower 7. You're asking what is taboo? I'll tell you. He says a rule. In the world of we learn that usually there's the row of the vessels, called Biner, and there are no vessels in general. The Kli of Tab is called phase 4, the Kli of is called, and the Kli of Biner is called. That's how he teaches it in the now. If we study that of, the question is asked, from whose Dickner are we talking from? Dickner of Sargar, because each degree that was in the Ab takes from pay below, Frun. Moreover, it needs to receive from below of Sarkar. But he wants to imply to us that because the place of the coupling was in the anime of, therefore they receive from the Sag, and because he wants to show us about the division of the restriction, the second restriction from anim and up, and from the anime, which is an additional thing about, so he calls it. And we'll leave these words about, but we will learn he's receiving from the goof of Sag, from goof of Sag, extends from P of Rosh to Sag until the taboo that is called the Kli of Malat, and from the P to the is called his Kli, and in the his of that's in general. Hello friends, we are continuing to study the article the mutual responsibility that Baram wrote. It's a very important article. He to our spiritual path. Today we'll study item 23. We will read and learn from Wilde's explanation. So let's take the writings of open the study material. We are reading the article where mutual responsibility item 23. First we will read item 23 in the tens. Each friend is invited to read, so we will get into the words of them together and try to connect to and to the reforming light. And then we will hear his explanation and conduct workshops, and we'll get to ask questions. So we are reading in the writings of the article the item 23. Let's begin by reading in the tense. Item 23. With these words, we clearly understand what we said above in item 5 about the Torah being given specifically to the Israeli nation, because it is certain and unequivocal that the purpose of creation lies on the shoulders of the whole of the human race, black or white, or yellow, without any essential difference, but because of the descent of human nature to the lowest degree, which is the self-love that rules over all of humanity without restraint, there was no way to negotiate with them and persuade them to agree to take upon themselves even as a mere promise to exit their narrow frame into the wide world of love of others. The exception was the Israeli nation, because they were enslaved in the savage kingdom of Egypt 400 years in horrible torments. Our sages said as salt sweetens meat, suffering scar men's sins. This means that they bring to the body great refinement. In addition, the refinement of their holy fathers assisted them, as said in item 16, which is the most important, as some of the verses of the Torah testify. Because of these two prefaces, they were qualified for it. This is why the text refers to them in singular form as it is written, and Israel camped there before the mountain, which our sages interpret as one man with one heart. This is because each and every person from the nation completely detached himself from self-love and wanted only to benefit his friend, as we have shown above in item 16 regarding the meaning of the commandment love your friend as yourself. It turns out that all the individuals in the nation had come together and become one heart and one man, for only then were they qualified to receive the Torah. 23. With these words, we clearly understand what was said above in item 5 about the Torah being given specifically to the Israeli nation, because it is certain the end, unequivocal that the purpose of creation lies on the shoulders of the whole of the human race, as black or white or yellow without any essential difference, but because of the descent of human nature to the lowest degree, which is the self-love that rules over all of humanity without restraint, there was no way to negotiate with them and persuade them to agree to take upon themselves even as a mere promise to exit their narrow frame into the wide world of love of others. The exception was the Israeli nation, because they were enslaved in the savage kingdom of Egypt 400 years in horrible torments. Our sages said, as salt sweetens meat, suffering scar men's sins. This means that they bring to the body great refinement. In addition, the refinement of their holy fathers assisted them, as said in item 16, which is the most important, as some of the verses of the Torah testify. Because of these two prefaces, they were qualified for it. This is why the text refers to them in singular form, as it is written, and Israel camped there before the mountain, which our sages interpret as one man with one heart. This is because each and every person from the nation completely detached himself from self-love and wanted only to benefit his friend, as we have shown above in item 16 regarding the meaning of the mitzvah love your friend as yourself. Okay friends, it's a very deep item, touches many things here. Now we will watch Off's explanation, elaborate explanation. So let's try to get into the study through's words through him. And clip number 1. We are reading in the writings of there, but we are in item 23. With these words, we clearly understand what we said above in item 5 about the Torah being given specifically to the Israeli nation, because it is certain and unequivocal that the purpose of creation lies on the shoulders of all of the whole of the human race, black or white or yellow, without any essential difference, but because of the descent of human nature to the lowest degree, which is the self-love that rules over all of humanity without restraint, there was no way to negotiate with them and persuade them to agree to take upon themselves even as a mere promise to exit their narrow frame into the wide world of love of others. The exception was the Israeli nation, because they were enslaved in the savage kingdom of Egypt 400 years in horrible torments. Our sages said, as salt sweetens meat, suffering scar men's sins. This means that they bring to the body great refinement. In addition, the refinement of their holy fathers assisted them, as which is the most important, as some of the verses of the Torah testify. Because of these two prefaces, they were qualified for it. This is why the text refers to them in singular form as it is written, and Israel camped there before the mountain, which our sages interpret as one man with one heart. This is because each and every person from the nation completely detached himself from self-love and wanted only to benefit his friend, as we have shown above in the mitzvah of love your friend as yourself. It turns out that all the individuals in the nation had come together and became one heart and one man, for only then were they qualified to receive the Torah. In other words, what are we saying here? We're saying that there was some preface forward necessary to certain people. It doesn't explain in terms of the common soul and how it was divided into individual souls, and how through the breaking they have parts that are incorporated in one another, how they fell and were mixed, and how they began to awaken and recover. It doesn't explain any of it. This article is written to the general people, so he simply explains that there was a special preparation to great suffering, and the suffering polishes the body is the will to receive. They make the will to receive more sensitive, not so crass, because the will to receive that suffers blows begins to become more subtle. Why did I receive blows? Where did I get it from? I don't want it anymore. What do I do in order to get rid of it? So out of these questions, they refine the will to receive, not just resisting, and that's it, and wanting to assert itself. No, now it knows that if it asserts itself directly, it suffers blows. So it's worth knowing in advance, worth checking in advance, like a person who's been through many orals in life. He doesn't relate to life in such a wild way to life. He knows it's not so simple. It's a complicated business. So those people who went through great suffering become worthy of receiving the Torah. It is possible to tell them that if you want the blows not to return, you can do it by rising above your will to receive, in which you feel the blows, and to the extent that you rise above it, you completely get rid of all the blows. You don't sympathize with that will to receive, but build for yourself a new place meaning a new desire in which you feel a new reality, which is a desire to bestow a reality called the upper world, and you can then rise to that level. That's it. Everything is done only by blows, first of all by blows. But what happens? We can take upon ourselves these blows in a different way if we begin to connect the blows to our will to receive, and ourselves the point in the heart to the goal. Then we no longer go according to the blows, but according to the goal, how much we advance towards the goal, and then the will to receive, which suffers blows in our feeling. We don't feel it as suffering, we feel it as gaining, because specifically through it we reach the goal. A form of force that reforms comes and connects us to the goal, and then our will to receive, instead of suffering blows, it becomes an assistant for achievement of the goal. So in the end, what happened? By receiving this new instruction, all the blows become steps of advancement toward adhesion with the Creator. Well, maybe we can interpret it more. Yes, and Israel camped there against the mountain. They connect us one man and one heart. What happens? Can you explain this allegorical picture? What happens to the ego at that moment? It remains passive, or let's say, we went under the leadership of Abraham, Isaac, and then Jacob. We went from a small ego that was explained to us in Babylon. We fled from this ego, rose above it. We connected through Abraham. We started connecting more and more with our ego, which is no longer called Babylon, but in the connection between us, called the land of Israel, the land of the desire, but it's still in Canaan. It's still far from Israel, in order to come from a state of Canaan, which is a certain connection to a desire called Israel, straight to the Creator, a desire in which we receive the reveal. The Creator reveal ourselves on the spiritual level. We have to receive an addition of big ego, not from Babylon, Canaan, but to add to the degree of desire. That's Canaan, add a desire. Called Egypt, Pharaoh. Egypt is a desire we acquire toward the degree root 1, 2, you could say 3, as meaning degrees of still, vegetative, and animate. This is Egypt. On the speaking level, it's Pharaoh, meaning the burdening of the heart of the whole group is very big. This is why it's called the exile in Egypt, because the ego grew and swallowed us in it. And then we try, because we are still with Jacob, with Moses, with Joseph, then with Moses, and meaning we advance in spirituality. But our spiritual state is called the exile in Egypt. It hides everything from us, and we feel the concealment and disagree with it. And we know that we can move the concealment away only through connection between us. We work and work on it, but see that it's impossible. It totally suffocates us. It gives us everything except connection in order to reveal love your friend as yourself, which Abraham taught us. We come to a state where we have to rise out of the frustrations, out of the blows that our ego feels. We rise above it. We are willing to rise. We ask, we want, we cry out, we're angry. And eventually, the force comes and elevates us above our ego. We are no longer in conflict with each other, and we have no problem with Pharaoh. It's as if we have disconnected from him, just like you. Sometimes you disconnect, really like an angel. I'm floating in the air, and sometimes the opposite. You are immersed in the will to receive. You can't see anything besides it. You don't understand a word of what's written and what's been said. Right? Both happen. That's it. So we've come to a state where we, through the connection between us from Abraham onwards, it's only through increasing connection. So we've come to a state where we are disconnected, relatively above the will to receive. Liken up an elevation and awakening. Spirits and everything, each and all of our degrees, are still vegetative and animate, even speaking, and we connect between us, but we understand who we're facing against. Mount C and that whole will to receive. You know, all of our degree is still vegetative, inanimate, and even the speaking, which is Pharaoh, against the speaking degree in us, which disconnects us from the Creator. Where is the Creator? In order to bestow contentment, to connect, yes, to read something good in spirituality, yes, but the problem is that it's all for the sake of bringing contentment to the Creator, and this, but really all of spirituality, is in this. Here I determine that I really want to use my ego in the opposite way. Pharaoh stands against the speaking degree in man, and here we are in a state where we are willing, ready for anything. We've come after having been inside Pharaoh in Egypt in that state. So we felt that he controlled us. But when that special light came, as it's written, not by an angel, not by messenger, but by the Creator himself, he cooled us out of Egypt. So when we rise above the will to receive the influence of the surrounding light, we discover that we really are connected to each other, because Pharaoh stayed below. Light influences us. We wanted to adhere, but Pharaoh was in the way, and we now adhered. No disturbance. And then we are as one man with one heart. That's where we are. It's clear to us that before us is this monster, this big will to receive. A minute later, it may swallow us. As it's written, if you don't accept the Torah, receive the Torah, this will be your burial place. You fall again into this mountain of your ego, and all this trash will choke you. It's your burial place. You understand? We are willing to accept the method how to work with this ego. Let it stand aside. We're afraid of it, and begin to receive the method how to work with it step by step. This is the vacation at the foot of Mount C, but we were constantly overcoming, increasing the connection. We were constantly feeling ourselves. Now our able to receive is Babylon. Now our able to receive is the land of Canaan. Now our desire is Egypt and Pharaoh. And now we ran away from this desire, rose above it with God's help, etc., etc. All this is inner work. The Torah doesn't tell us anything about geography. Yes, about this point, the ego remains seemingly passive. Is there an agreement? Is there an agreement on its behalf that there's a connection? One man in one heart. The light comes when we cry out that we want to be connected. We want to reveal the Creator in this. Discover how much we're bringing him contentment, like good kids. We want to do what is good to in the eyes of our fathers. This outcry where we cry out from the work when we worked on connection, we see that it's impossible. A state is revealed where I cannot do anything from within the will of receive that I'm in, and then comes this force go of its, or it's the greatest light, which later brings us to the dividing of the Red Sea, and it's actually G of HMA. And this is what takes us out of Egypt. The light of the redemption from Egypt is a very great light. From what I understand from you Rav now, is you can't rely on the ego, because it can erupt again. It remains passive, but of course there work standing on the tip of a knife, this way or that way. If they accept the method, they accept the method. Now we systematically can correct our ego methodically and turn it from the angel of death to the angel of life, from the portion of life to the portion of death to the portion of life. The Torah does it. If we don't do it, it'll be for us the portion of death, and we will be buried in this Mount Sea in the hatred, revealed in this gradual way. Okay, yeah, he writes here, and it turns out that they gathered together all the individuals in the nation and became one heart and one man, for only then they were qualified to receive the Torah. My question, Rav, when we're working now in the tens and we're doing actions for connection, when we raise that same common desire and common yearning for to connect, what does all that give us right now? Is it to lower to us lights, or we try to connect at it? That's all. We have nothing else to do, only to connect more and more and more, and through from these efforts we come to a state where we feel that we are unable to connect because of the will of receiving us, which separates us and really doesn't let us in any way, and then we define it as Pharaoh as our enemy. The hatred pushes us away from him, that's it, and then we come to a state where we hate it, and then when we have emerged from it, we see before whom we stand. Before that hatred, the Mount Sea is a multi-layered diverse discernment. We see how much we hate our ego, like a mountain of hatred toward it on one hand. On the other hand, we feel how we are completely powerless, incapable of anything. And then comes this opportunity. If you want the reforming light, by all means, also only now do we begin to understand what is the reforming light, because previously we didn't understand what it was about, because we saw ourselves rising a little bit, falling a little bit, in a good state, in a bad state, all kinds of relations like that. But it still wasn't clear to us how this light operates, what it is. What does it come from when we couldn't draw it? You see, people are asleep. They don't know what to do. They don't have the strength. All of a sudden they do have strength. When will it happen? And greater ascent, smaller ascent, we don't control it. It's not a method, whereas on Mount Sea we receive the method itself, where we can already go with our own strength. So we heard that the people of Israel had a special preparation through suffering, that they truly felt the suffering in Egypt, and by that they were ready to receive the Torah. And we want to now go to a short workshop and to scrutinize, how do sufferings become a vessel for the correction of the desire? How do the sufferings become a vessel for the correction of the desire? Please, you've got 6 minutes. How does suffering become a vessel for correction of the desire? The explanation was very deep. Suffering in what? And what does a person come to wanting to correct the desire? Does he see something bad in it? Person has to come to a stage where the desire in him is disconnected from spirituality, and that it will bother him, and when it bothers him, and he wants to correct it, then there are actions. Without suffering, we would remain in the same place, would be in some spiritual degree, let's say, and not wanting to move from it, not to the right, nor to the left, because it's good for us there. But the moment another part of the coarseness is revealed, another part of the truth of how uncorrected my desire really is, it causes suffering and movement, and then we can advance. We need to turn the suffering into suffering pains of where I want to adhere to the friends, connect to them and do something for the friends, but I'm powerless by myself. Without suffering, we would remain in place all lifelong and move. Why? Because that's our matter, that's the desire to receive. So what are the sufferings for? How do they become the correction of the desire? If they lead a person to ask a question, why this is happening to me? What's the meaning of all of this? And then, from here he starts. Right, what is question? May go through the whole process from Abraham, that everyone must follow Abraham, emerge from the desire of Babylon, and then reach the land of Canaan, where our desire seemingly surrenders towards spirituality seemingly. Then we have to discover it with all its might, which is Pharaoh. That we discover, and until we discover all the blows on Pharaoh, we will not want to come God, only where we recognize how much he hates us and doesn't let us go to spirituality. We run away from Egypt and must reach the desert and Mount Sea to discover all the desire that we are facing. We see how powerless we are, and then we ask the Creator, and there's more development there. And we talk about how the salt softens the meat, all the blood, the blows make us soften our flesh, meaning, and a different understanding needs to come where these blows guide us towards the goal. These are actually degrees of ascent if we think completely differently, that all the blows that we receive we make turn them into degrees of nearing the Creator, and then all these states are changed into the go Babylon and towards Canaan and Egypt, and then in Egypt it becomes truer way to escape the ego. We have a feeling we really can reach spiritual, and we really need torn away from our ego. Bones are good. The simplest is to think what moves a person without going into exiles and what not. What moves a person, and if he is comfortable, he won't move. When he's uncomfortable, he tries to change something. So maybe that's the root of the suffering. First, a person needs to want to move from his place. When you're too complacent, you don't do anything. The root is at rest, and we are like it, so we want only to rest. It says that even when you put your hand into your pocket and you take out the wrong coin that you planted on taking, then that's already suffering. So every movement of a person is actually suffering. So where does the suffering want to bring him? Yes, but if we reach a state of greatness and importance, then every discovery of such suffering is truly degrees of ascent for us, where wisdom is to see it in this way, that it all comes from the Creator, and then that's our work. It's not simple. Without suffering, it's impossible. We saw how the people united as one man, with one heart as one, and one heart as if ready to receive the Torah. But that was not enough. They had to go into deeper suffering, and then they received the Torah. Yes, friends, we want to move now to questions and unanswers. So you're invited to raise your hands here. Question marks in the Arbut system. And we're going to move to questions and answers about things we heard. Other things, please. Can Emmanuel? Yes, Emmanuel. To continue the question you asked in the workshop. When the trouble comes upon you, at first, you can't connect it. But when it comes, it disconnects you. And then you crash. And it takes a long time to start connecting the dots. So, how to work correctly with the suffering that falls upon you. You're probably not talking about suffering out of studying Kabbalah from the impact of the light upon you. But yes, when blows come, we try in the wisdom of Kabbalah to actually, by awakening the light upon us, we start to feel suffering on a different degree. Like Rav said, that there is the degree of Pharaoh where the ego begins to suffer from you having to subjugate yourself in the tan and connect and make efforts. It's for those sufferings that we replace the sufferings of the body. We come to sufferings of true sufferings, where we receive blows. Then you're right, you're disconnected. That's how all of humanity advances. We try to invite the light upon us and go through the bodily suffering, seemingly that we go through, which truly disconnect us, and it could take hundreds of years and thousands of years, but to a spiritual degree where it can take a few seconds or a few states altogether. So a student who understands the principle, when he suffers a blow, he understands he needs to deal with it. Like you go to the doctor. But what's the inner process? In order for the blow to also be something that you advance from and not just a blow, the process is to dissolve 12 in the 10 or in the group. We have a society which reminds you first of all that there's no besides, and that makes it easier. Then they remind you that the Creator is good, that does good, which makes it also easier. The society guides you to the fact that efforts and connection, that by that you invite the light and go through the state. A person who doesn't have all those means it can take years before they go from one state to another. Thank you. Gave a very special explanation here. I'm reading Friend's words. He says if we begin to connect the blows to our will to receive and ourselves a point in the heart to the goal, and we are no longer following the blows but the goal as much as we are advancing toward the goal. In other words, our goal is to connect the states we feel as suffering to the goal. The more in one of the lessons I've said that the more we shorten the time between connecting the personal suffering I feel right now, any kind of suffering, distinguished between suffering corporal suffering and spiritual suffering, but the more we shorten the time which we do, only with the help of the environment, the 10, and connect it to the goal, I use this purportedly negative force as a means for advancement that pushes me out of my state to the next state. And this is how we advance. Yes, we have a gathering in Copenhagen. Our friends are trying to awaken Scandinavia. P from Ashken is there and Jacob is there. So they have a question. Yes, hello friends. I was going to ask, what can you do for a friend that's going through suffering? He's going through blows and it's not always apparent what to do. What can you do for a friend who suffering blows? That's a good question. What do you think? What can you do for a friend who suffering blows? You want to say both, and it's our 10 the young. Friends 10. Internally, of course, always pray, and in the incorporation between us, scrutinize what he needs externally. You can always somewhat help a friend, or many friends, many qualities, many abilities. So there's always internal and external. Internally, we always pray for the friend. We think about him, give him help, virtually, spiritually kind of, and then externality, you incorporate with him. You talk to him, you talk to his wife maybe, and find out what you can do for him. Someone else wants, right? So first of all, the question as this difference said here, what kind of blows are we talking about? But in general, a friend always needs support, not only when he suffers and blows, also when it seems like he is in a different state. We don't know what state the friend is in, we only see what is on the outside. So it's true that the more sensitive we become to each other in the tent, the more we feel the friend's states. So our work is to constantly give importance of the goal and greatness to the friends, give them strength, give them confidence on the path. It can be done openly or internally. That you think about him, pray for him, ask for him, and of course where you can, really help practically, help. But normally the friend needs more internal support. The external help you can usually work it out. But the inner support is more meaningful and gives us strength. Thank you. I heard from love that there's a desire to receive in us and a desire to bestow. If a person from the create from to desire to receive to bestow, then you don't feel blows in the desire to receive. Where question is, what is that point that is in the desire? How do you move it from one desire to another? If I understand correctly, you simply restrict your will to receive, and then you don't feel any suffering there, and then you live in a feeling of desire to bestow. So that's the whole point of the restriction. If you manage to restrict the will of receive, meaning run away from it, or actually it's to run away from Pharaoh. In the exit, we saw that Pharaoh is a degree stands opposite the speaking degree in our inner person. So if you can keep him, not kill him, even in the story, they don't kill him, but they manage to run away. And then you reach Mount C, and then you can connect. Why are we succeeding in being in mutual responsibility only? Being in one man is one man with one heart only, where we run away from Pharaoh. So Pharaoh stops us from communicating between us, and there we suffer. The minute we can run away, we can be for a moment as one man with one heart, and then we begins a new different work. A different ego is revealed there. So first of all, for us in our stage, this is what we want to do. This is why we also picked the article, the mutual responsibility, as guidance, how to run away from the ego where all this suffering is felt. There's sufferings and blows. Should we be afraid of the blows? You don't need to be afraid or not afraid from the blows. We're not looking for suffering. We're not looking for blows. We're looking to adhere to the Creator and bring him contentment. Here, in his very elaborate and special explanation, says that the real resistance is only to this point, bringing contentment to the Creator. So we shouldn't fear the blows. We shouldn't run away from the blows. We should try to rise above the blows and turn what we feel as a blow into an instrument for advancement on the spiritual path. We can do this only with the help of our environment, with the help of our 10, with the help of all the supportive environment we build for ourselves, the group and the books. So we shouldn't fear the blows, although we often heard from in lessons 2 that fear is good. It lifts a person from indifference. So if you can use it effectively to advance, use it. How can we strengthen our connection in love of others, and not for the connection to be out of fear of not feeling the pain? Again, how can we strengthen the connection and love of others in order for it not to be a connection out of fear from the pain to begin with? We want to connect in order to bring him contentment, not in order to run away from the blows. If we, to begin with, let's say here we gathered several thousand people. Now, in order to run away from the blows, we found a method to run away from our blows. No, that's not the goal. The goal is to bring contentment to the Creator, to realize the purpose of creation as a result of that. We can feel blows and feel the Creator. That's why He's concealed. The moment we don't feel a blow, we will be able to also reveal Him. That's why He is in concealment. So again, you need to scrutinize the goal more. We're not studying the wisdom of Kabbalah in order to run away from our blows. We don't even think about that. And also, whoever studies the wisdom of Kabbalah, as we said, his blows are already on the degree of Adam. Of course, nothing is rosy and we're still on this land, but the blows are different. You need in the 10 to subjugate yourself, need to come to the morning lessons. You heard the first part. Kabbalists would put conditions before Kabbalists. Yes, that's also all kinds of so-called obstacles that a person needs with effort to deal with and withstand these conditions, even external ones. So all these things soften a person's heart, polish it. Thank you very much for the opportunity to ask a beautiful lesson. The preparation for the lesson from Japan was great. My question was regarding understanding the suffering that we have, for example, in the group in general. The Central Asia vessel is a young clay that's developing, and of course, according to our physical newness, we have all kinds of conflict scrutinies that we can attribute to the category of suffering. What do you think? Does this suffering, is it spiritual, or is it in the realm of my will to receive? Stand. Saying we gather here physically, the people in Central Asia, so naturally, when people convene more physically, also more contact and also more friction. Should we enter those frictions, or should we relate to these frictions as spiritual sufferings, or is it part of the desire to receive? Yeah, we know this. It's true that the more connection there is, and there is more connection when you meet physically, then there is also more connection. This is why we're pushing so hard toward physical meetings recently. But as a result, there are also more problems and separation. How to relate to it? It's true. It's great suffering to see when we try to unite and see actual separation. We see friends. Some of them don't speak to each other. It seems like it's against the method. On the other hand, this is nature. We understand that this is the evil inclination. This is its behavior. And on the other hand, it leads us to a prayer. Otherwise, how do we come to a prayer? The Creator doesn't want us to solve our own problems. He doesn't send us, His faithful angel, the will to receive, so that we with our strength will deal with it. He sends it to us so we will make an effort. Correct. The efforts are on us. But in the end, you have to check your advancement by, are you turning to the Creator more with each lesson or not? Because if everything is great, why do we need the Creator? So one of the signs of progress is that we are more needy of the Creator. Thank you, dear teachers. What does it mean to rise above the blows? How is this expressed? Rising above the blows is to make efforts to increase the importance of the goal regardless of the personal states I'm going through. Each of us goes through all kinds of personal states in our corporeal life, in the reality he's dealing with, but also in his life in the 10, and these states create all kinds of challenges and complexities. The more we work methodically on the greatness and importance of the goal, we can rise above these states. The more these states bring us down in the greatness and importance of the goal is below, and the intensity of the states we are immersed in the states rather than in the goal, and we can't attribute the states we're going through personally to our spiritual goal, and then it creates a disconnect. We become disconnected from the spiritual goal, so the more we can create the spirit of greatness and importance, and by the way also to engage ourselves, occupy ourselves with as many things that are related to the goal. For example, a permanent duty in dissemination. It helps us rise above these states, or at least focus on my duty in dissemination. We saw many times, and I've always said that when a person loses his connection to the path, often it's the duty that preserves him. Hence, so our duties in dissemination are more for us than for dissemination. It's true that we also bring benefit, but they, first of all, maintain a routine that we build for ourselves. The study, the method, this process is built in such a way that a person is not dependent on the states he's going through. So above it, we have to try to build greatness and importance all the time. Women call me. Hello everyone. According to what I understand, I hope I understand it correctly, our ego needs to constantly grow. Now Rav talked here from Babylon to Canaan to Egypt. A question, do we need to distinguish between two? Scrutinize these states. Do we need to know how to reach them? How we work with this? That's what's interesting. What are these states? Babylon, Canaan, and Egypt. Do we really need to know how to work with them? During the preparation period, I don't think we can distinguish these states. But the one who wrote it, those who wrote them for us, of course they distinguish them, not one state, but its names in the beginning. A person is confused. Baal, Babylon, from the word bibal, confusion, where he doesn't know what is the intention to receive, to bestow. We also go through these states even below the barrier when we don't quite know. Sometimes the person thinks it seems to him that yes, he's already bestowing in the 10, and sometimes he doesn't. And then when he already knows how to subjugate his ego, we come to Canaan from the word submission or surrender. But in the end, we have to go into Egypt in order to receive the additional coarseness. Only after Egypt, you see, not after Canaan, but after Egypt, it is possible to run away. Before that, when the ego was small, a person thinks he can cope with it, deal with it. Only after 400 years in Egypt, going through the 4 degrees and running away from Pharaoh, we can be as one man with one heart. To meet this condition, we have to constantly be aware that we will have to meet this condition even before we cross the barrier, and that's possible only after we go through all those states. Thank you, friends. Wrote in the text something called the merit of the patriarchs. What is he talking about? What does Bara want to say to us in this concept of the? We heard from her many explanations that when we talk about ancestral merits, we're talking about the first degrees. The degrees is always from the correction, is always from light to heavy. We divide it into Vak and Gar in practice. We're talking about the more refined degrees of the will to receive, and they are the ones that are corrected first. Before that, in the previous items, compares Israel to the nations of the world like the forefathers in Israel. So, the correction is always done from the refined to the coarse. The patriarchs, the forefathers, are the more refined desires. We're not talking about generations like physical generations. We're talking about processes of correction of the more refined desires. So at one time talks about the forefathers in Israel. Another time he talks about Israel and the nations of the world, and the division between the coarser desires and more refined desires. Israel are the more refined desires, which is what he calls Israel a nation, which was correct at first, and that's why he says in order to correct the confusion, he says in the beginning of item 23, the purpose of creation is upon all of the human race, black, without any distinction. So he writes even before that people shouldn't think that there's a matter of nationality here, nationalism here. So it's a spiritual process. First, the more refined desires, and then the course of ones. My friends, in the first part of the lesson, we'll learn a lesson from Rav, from the date February 8, 2002, and the article is Jacob Went Out. It is article number 10 from 1985. We will read the article in 10 for 23 minutes. Jacob went out. Jacob went out. According to Rash's interpretation, It should have written only, Jacob went to Haran. Why does it mention his exit? It says that the exit of a righteous from a place leaves an impression. When the righteous is in town, here is its splendor. Here is its brilliance. Here is its majesty. When he exits it, its splendor exits, its brilliance exits, and its majesty exits. Thus far his words. We should understand the above in the work. What is a righteous and what is the impression that a righteous makes upon his exit? We should interpret that the Creator is called righteous. As it is written, the Lord is the righteous and I and my people are the wicked. This means that when a person is close to the Creator, meaning feels that the Creator is close to him, he feels how the Creator does him good. At that time, he feels good taste in Torah and in prayer, and in all his engagements, he feels that the Creator is close to him. Whatever he does it with joy and elation. Afterwards, he comes into a descent, feeling tastelessness in the study of Torah and good deeds. However, he is left with the impression that he had during the ascent, when he felt good taste in Torah and mitzvot, and was in a state of joy. That remaining impression made him long to return to the previous state. That is, after some time he awakens through the impression left in him so as to seek advice how to return to the state he had, which was called a state of ascent. While now he feels his loneliness, how remote he is from anything spiritual. This brings up the question, why did he get this descent? Who is gaining by this? Or perhaps it came to him as a punishment. For now, he must correct himself for his sin. However, he does not know what was the sin for which he has descended from the state of ascent he was in. Thus he does not know what is what to correct. It follows that on the one hand, he does not see any deficiency in himself that could have caused him a descent. So he is compelled to say that it came from the Creator. This begs the question, what did he gain from lowering him from his degree? By this we can interpret what our sages said. The exit of the righteous from the place leaves an impression. During the ascent, it is regarded as the Creator being present in the place, meaning in the body. At that time, he causes him the sensation of excitement from Torah and mitzvot, but he could not give that importance that the Creator is in him. As it is written, I am the Lord who dwells within them, in the midst of their impurity, to appreciate it, to know who is in him, and pay the due respect. Thus, they could never help him receive a higher degree since he was satisfied with the work. By